What's poppin', people? It's Dante. Welcome to Street Photography Breakdown Part 17, where we look at 5 different photographs, breaking down the compositions and how the photographs were made. And the hope in this video is for you to come home with an understanding of how I approach the streets through my philosophy and technique, and then apply this to your journey. And so here in example number 1, we have drugs in Dharavi. This is a very intense photograph I made in Mumbai spontaneously. And so first and foremost, a photographer must possess courage and curiosity, and these virtues I believe we should carry out there onto the front lines of life. And as I approached this slum here in Mumbai, I walked around the streets, I was invited into homes, I was gifted photographs practically, and this guy came over to me and showed me his drugs. He told me, look, Indian drugs, come here, take photo. And so I just approached him and made a photo, and that's really how this photo was made. I actually have a behind the scenes video. If you go to youtube.com/streetphotography, if you just click on my name, whatever, I have a playlist with the behind the scenes from my series in Mumbai. And so of course what drew me in was this moment of the man snorting this drug. I made a photograph of that moment, obviously. And so I pretty much got my camera as close as physically possible to this moment. And so what that did was it intensified the frame in the moment through his eyes and his gesture, looking back at you as the viewer. And so this moment was very much spontaneous. I had maybe 2 seconds to respond and make a picture. And it was very dangerous. Think about it, right? I'm in this alleyway, I don't know anybody. But honestly, when you float through life on a feather bed by embracing, like my idea is like if you go through the chaos, you know, and you detach from the outcome with this like positive, curious, childlike attitude, you'll just float through the chaos and the unknown on a feather bed, and nothing will hurt you. And you'll just, by embracing danger, like ironically enough, it's almost like safer. And so this guy, he looks back at me as I'm making the picture. I fill the background of the frame with another dude who just snorted a line of whatever this drug is. And you can see that he's kind of got his hand over his face, coughing, reacting to the interaction with the drug. And so I don't know if I'm even allowed to like share this on YouTube. Let's see if I get a strike. Please don't flag me. Yeah, so this is a photo I made very spontaneously. Let's move on, because that photo, I don't know, we can't really, let's just move on from that photo. You know, I'm an open world explorer, right? If you go out there and you have an adventure and you go out there and you're exploring, you'll just find yourself in these situations. You'll find yourself inside people's homes. People will want you inside their world. As a photographer with curiosity in a new place, you'll be delivered with these moments and interactions and stories to tell, because honestly, when you're in a new place, it's very rare to see people that are outsiders. And so here in Jericho, we have example number 2, the baby in Jericho. And as I approached this man with his child outside, he invited me to his home. He invited me to drink some coffee. I remember going to his backyard. I was making pictures. And then eventually I wound up inside his house. And as I approached the couch, I noticed a baby who was laying on the couch waiting for his mother to come and take care of the baby. And so I framed that subject right on the couch. And as I made this relationship between the baby and the background, it became more apparent to me to include certain elements in the frame. So I included those different signs. I believe it says, you know, Allah and Muhammad, I'm pretty sure. And we have some teddy bears there above the doorway. And so these little elements, as I was making the composition and framing things, I made sure to incorporate. And so I stepped back from an angle that allowed me to include the full couch, that allowed me to include those different signs, right, and those different details on the wall. And so I didn't just get really close to the subject, but I backed up and sort of allowed the different details around the subject set the scene and tell the story. And so we have the leading lines from the background, we have that sort of depth from the couch being sort of prompted there in the foreground in relationship to the background. We have the doorways, and we have these different little details and elements in the background that I believe carry this photograph. As much as the tender moment of the child laying on the couch is beautiful and sweet, I believe actually the details around that child are what help tell the story and elevate this mundane moment. And so example number 3, we have the Tel Aviv beach. This is one of the first photographs I made when I arrived in Israel in 2017. I remember traveling to the beach and finding this moment to be the perfect place to make a photograph, because when you're at a beach, you can actually work with layers a lot more easily, as you have a clean backdrop and there's easy ways for you to separate subjects throughout the frame in the foreground, middle ground, and background. And so as I approached this particular scene, I noticed this person lying on this chair with their head covered and they're gesturing towards their face, and I made sure to make that the focal point of the composition in the center of the frame. I noticed the yellow umbrella and decided to plug that into the foreground as well, so that I can add depth and a pop of color across that blue sky. And so my idea was, by photographing from eye level and including not only that gesture of the person lying on that chair, but also this pop of color from the umbrella, I'm just playing with this visual game of putting together a composition like a visual puzzle and adding depth very simply by including more elements in the frame. We have in the background this sign that juts out in the center of the frame, casted across that blue sky, that gives clean separation and leading lines with that horizon of the rocks in the background. And then finally we have this person who is walking along the coastline, and these are different things that I sense the possibility could occur in a photograph, as I'm aware of my background, I'm aware of my foreground and the subject that I'm interested in. All I really needed to do was then just be patient and wait and angle my body in a particular way to then have somebody else enter the background of the frame to add depth and add something more to the picture. And so we have the result of the photograph here at the Tel Aviv beach, a very simple frame, a few different elements that combine to create a pretty clean and simple photograph. Example number 4, we have the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Actually, alongside that photograph I made on the beach, this was actually, I believe, the first photo I made. Because I remember I arrived in Jerusalem, in the old city, and I went straight to the Western Wall. That was the first photograph I made. And so here's example number 4, the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And I remember as I approached the Western Wall in Jerusalem, I noticed how everybody was stationary and just standing against this wall. And so my interest isn't necessarily of the wall itself or that very obvious moment of people in prayer, but I noticed this frequent chaos of people moving in and out of the bathrooms on the left-hand side. And so I made sure to find myself positioned at that particular choke point where I'm noticing movement and I'm noticing energy, because that's what moves me and compels me to make a photograph. And so as I position myself alongside the sidelines of the Western Wall, observing the people coming in and out of the bathroom and walking towards the Western Wall, I made a picture with lots of layers and action here. And so we have in the foreground one man, I believe these are the Orthodox Jews with the black garbs on. He's got his hat on and he's moving to the right-hand side of the frame in relationship to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 subjects in the background. And so we have 7 people moving across this frame, all perfectly centered, all perfectly aligned, and no real overlap here. And this is something very difficult to achieve, but by positioning myself at a particular choke point and sensing the possibility of movement and people aligning, I made this picture through my intuition. But I also was well aware of my background. We have this small crutch here that fills the frame, and the wall and the lines from the ground that separate these people across this composition. And so by positioning myself in a particular place, sensing the possibility at a choke point where people are moving in and out of the scene, having a clean backdrop that allows for clean separation, I was able to then come home with this composition of this very dynamic and chaotic scene, but put order to the chaos by recognizing these very simple fundamental things that I can tell you will help you improve your street photography. Number 1, find a choke point. Find the place where people are moving. Find where the action is. Number 2, set your stage. Understand how you can separate these subjects from the background to create a clean and coherent composition. And then number 3, being patient with timing and waiting for the moments to unfold, and then simply working the scene and clicking the shutter a couple more times until this moment aligns. And so that's how this photograph was made at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Example number 5, we have summer in Baltimore, another photograph in a similar fashion to that photograph I made in Jerusalem, yet this was a very early photograph of mine in 2016, summer in Baltimore. And so at the time I was photographing during the golden hour. We have the beautiful light, but of course it was the scene of these children playing. They have their shirts off and they're engaging in some sports. It was a beautiful day, the beautiful light and shadow play, and I filled these two boys in the foreground looking back towards each other. In the background on the sidewalk, we have the two girls running across the street. She's got a baby stroller, practicing being a mother, playing as a mother, as a child. It's a very fun moment, it's a sweet moment of this girl playing with the stroller and the other girl running towards her. And so we have the two boys in the street, the two girls on the sidewalk, and then a very simple background with windows and the texture on the wall, the doorway, the sign, and the gesture of this boy who is gazing towards the right-hand side. He's positioned there on the left-hand side of the frame with his eyes gazing towards the right-hand side, which guides the viewer's eye. And so that's very similar to the way I framed it in Jerusalem with that sort of gesture of the man in the foreground looking towards the right-hand side. There's a dynamic there with eyes and gesture and movement that I look for. And so this is another example of that kind of thing unfolding. The background is simple and clean, similar to the previous frame, and this is something important for me in order to create a visual feast where I believe a great photograph is not only compelling in terms of the moment and the dynamics at the scene, but I believe that having something that is easy to read is what elevates a street photograph. And so the background is set, we have a simple composition, 4 different subjects, cleanly separated, a beautiful summer day here in Baltimore. And so I made this photograph through walking the streets, and these kind of scenes were what are available to you when you're walking the streets of Baltimore, specifically in the neighborhood Sandtown-Winchester. There's a lot of boarded up homes, a lot of abandoned buildings and lots, and there's not that much things going on out there, but you'll find yourself making pictures of these youths because these are the kind of scenes that are available. These are the kind of people and subjects and moments that you find in these kind of neighborhoods. And so this is the photograph that I came home with on this particular summer day in September of 2016. And so if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to visit DanteSisofo.com for more resources on street photography. You can find more videos on my playlist on youtube.com/streetphotography with a variety of lectures. Feel free to check those out. And thank you for watching today's video. I hope something I said in this video has inspired you or taught you something that you can then go out and apply to your photography. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.